Hi everyone, thanks for visiting my channel. If you are new, thanks for stopping by. If you enjoy the content that you find on my channel, please consider subscribing. I also have social media links in the description box below my video, and I would love for you to take a peek over there as well. So I hope you are all enjoying your fall, and we have Thanksgiving coming up, and that means we have some yummy, delicious food we need to get prepared. So today we're going to be talking about sweet potatoes. There are a lot of different sweet potato dishes out there. Sweet potato casserole, sweet potato souffle. Some of us just like candied sweet potatoes. Lots of different ways to make them, but today I'm going to show you how to make a delicious sweet potato souffle. Now, what is the difference between souffle and casserole, you may ask? They're very similar in flavors and textures, but a souffle definitely contains eggs. Sweet potato casserole usually does not, and a souffle is lighter and fluffier and airier. So we're going to be making a light and fluffy, delicious sweet potato souffle with a delicious crunchy sugar pecan topping on top. So a couple things that you're going to need. Obviously, you're going to need sweet potatoes. Just a word on sweet potatoes. I am going to be using my home candied sweet potatoes. If you are not a canner or you don't have these on your shelf, you can use a can from the grocery store, or you can always use fresh sweet potatoes and you can roast them in the oven, or you can boil them. Whatever works for you, you just need to start with some cooked sweet potatoes. So I'm going to be using 2 quart jars of my home canned sweet potatoes. That's going to give us about 4 cups roughly of mashed sweet potatoes, and that's about how much you want. It's about 3 pounds of sweet potatoes that you're going for. It doesn't have to be exact here for the amount of sweet potatoes. Just get as close as you can. So approximately 3 pounds of sweet potatoes, 4 cups mashed. So you're going to need, like I said, the sweet potatoes. Then we're going to need some eggs, of course. I'm going to be using cream. You can use heavy cream like I'm using. You can use whole milk. You can use low-fat milk. I don't recommend that. This is a decadent dish, so I highly recommend using something that's full fat at least. And I'm going to be going whole, all in, and I'm going to be using heavy cream. We need a little bit of cinnamon. You can put that in, leave it out. That's up to you. I like a little bit of cinnamon in there. A little bit of salt, obviously, just to enhance the flavor. Some delicious vanilla extract, which is also optional. You can use it, not use it. That's entirely up to you. And I'm going to be using my homemade extract. And then we need some sugar. I'm going to be using a 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar, but if you prefer white sugar, you can use that as well. I'm going to be using the light brown sugar, but you could use dark brown sugar. That's up to you. You could use coconut sugar. You could use whatever type of sweetener you like. You could use here. It's totally fine. And then also we're going to be using some melted butter. And then the other ingredient that's kind of a secret ingredient for souffle is we're going to be using a 1/2 cup of cake flour mixed with 3/4 teaspoon of baking powder. So basically what I'm making is self-rising flour. So if you have self-rising cake flour on hand, just go ahead and use that. You can use all-purpose flour. And again, you can do the trick of making the self-rising flour by adding the baking powder to it, or you can use just straight up all-purpose self-rising flour. But cake flour is lighter and airier, and it's going to lend itself better to a souffle type feel in our sweet potato souffle. So that's up to you. Use what you have on hand. I always have cake flour on hand and baking powder, so I'm just going to make my own. So you use what you have or what appeals to you. The one thing that's really important here is to make sure that if you are starting with canned potatoes, that you drain them really well. So I'm going to get started by draining my potatoes, and then I'm going to bring you in and we're going to mash them up and add all of our yummy ingredients. The other thing too is you will have to decide if you are anti-marshmallow or if you are team marshmallow. If you are team marshmallow, we're going to add a few mini marshmallows towards the end of our baking time. I love marshmallows with my sweet potatoes, so I'm going to be adding them, but you can leave them out. You decide what works best for you. Okay guys, I have my sweet potatoes all drained. I am going to be using my hand mixer to do this. You can do everything by hand if you prefer. I like using the mixer. So really simple stuff here. We're just gonna go ahead and start with our seasoning. I'm gonna add about a teaspoon of cinnamon. We're gonna add about a half a teaspoon or so of salt. We're gonna add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. You wanna use good vanilla extract. We're going to use a half a cup of heavy cream or milk, whatever you want to use. 3 eggs. A half a cup of firmly packed brown sugar. Pack that one a little too firm. A half a stick or a quarter of a cup of melted butter. A half a cup of our self-rising flour. So it's either a half a cup of flour and 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder or just plain self-rising flour. Either I'm using the cake flour, but you can use all-purpose as well. Let's kind of give this a little mash and then we're going to mix it up. Okay, once it's well mixed and nice and smooth, I like to just taste it to make sure my seasonings are good. Tastes fantastic. So we're going to take a buttered casserole dish, or you can spray it with cooking spray. I buttered mine. We're being decadent here, right? And we're going to pour that in. And then we're going to smooth that out. This is a 1.5 quart baking dish. If you want a shallower, I mean, you can use a larger dish and then it not be so full. I like my souffle to be nice and puffy, so I'm using a 1.5 quart baking dish. And now we're ready to add our topping. Okay, so now we're ready for our topping. I have a 1/3 cup of flour, and to my flour, I'm going to add a 1/3 cup of packed brown sugar. We're going to add just a dash of cinnamon. You could use nutmeg here, or you don't really need any spice. If you don't want any, you can leave it all out. We're going to mix that together. And again, you could use just white granulated sugar here, but the brown sugar is just delicious in this topping. Get that all mixed together, and then we are going to take a 1/4 cup of softened butter. We're just going to work that into our sugar and flour. Okay, once you get your butter worked into your flour and your sugar, you're going to add 1 cup of nuts. You can do pecans are an obvious choice here, but you could also use walnuts if you prefer. Use whatever you like. We just want to mix it all together. And then we're just going to generously sprinkle the top of our souffle with our streusel topping. Okay, it's ready to go into our preheated 350-degree oven. We're going to bake it for about 30 minutes. Okay guys, my souffle has baked for about 30 minutes. You want to make sure that it has puffed up some and that all of your toppings are nice and golden brown. Now, if you are team marshmallow, at this point you can go ahead and sprinkle some marshmallows on top, pop it back in the oven for 5 minutes or so until your marshmallows are nice ooey gooey and golden brown on top. If you're not team marshmallow, you can go ahead and just be done and let it cool a little bit and then it's ready to go. I am team marshmallow. So I am going to sprinkle some mini marshmallows across the top. And how many you use is entirely up to you, of course. I'm just going to use, I don't know, about a half a cup or so. And then I'm going to pop mine back in the oven until my marshmallows are ooey gooey and nice and lightly browned. That looks pretty good to me. And if you're clever, you will make your own marshmallows. I do have a video on that and I will link it for you here and I'll leave it in the description box below. So I'm gonna pop my souffle back in the oven for another 5 minutes or so. Okay guys, we are all done. I baked my souffle for an additional about 8 minutes until my marshmallows were nice and toasted on top and started to get ooey gooey. Then I've let my souffle rest for about 10 minutes. You are gonna wanna give it a resting time. So I'm gonna show you how beautiful it is. You can see you've got nice ooey gooey marshmallows and the crunchy topping and then this beautiful light and fluffy center. It is so delicious. So let's give it a try and see how we did. Make sure it truly is delicious. Light and airy, creamy. Just the right amount of sweetness for me. If you are a person who likes a lot of sweetness, you could always adjust the amount of sugar that we put into the mashed potatoes in the beginning. I don't think the topping needs any more, but if you want your your sweet potatoes sweeter, you could use more sugar than I did. Some recipes call for up to a cup of brown sugar. I think that that's a lot, but some people serve this as a dessert. So is it a side, is it a dessert? I don't know. That's something for you to decide. If you make it super sweet, then it almost is dessert-like. So anyway, however you like it, it's worth a try. One of the things that I did want to share is the deeper your dish is, your baking dish, you might want to give yourself some extra baking time. I did notice this time I used a smaller baking dish. Usually I use my 2-quart casserole dish, but it's busy with other things right now, so I used my 1.5 quart, so it was a little bit deeper. In the middle of mine was a little less done than I like it. So just keep that in mind. The more shallow your dish is, the bigger your dish is, the less time you'll need to bake it. So I could have baked mine for more like 40-45 minutes and then put my marshmallows on top. So just keep that in mind. The size of your dish does matter. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed coming along with me today. This is a great way to enjoy sweet potatoes for your Thanksgiving feast or even your Christmas feast. I know some people do them for Christmas as well, but it's something new to try on your table this year. So again, thanks for joining me. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them for me in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.